What's up, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Variant, the podcast. I don't know if it's really a podcast per se, but we're going to talk about Wakanda Forever.
It's going to be a podcast.
We're going to talk about Wakanda Forever.
That's right.
And we're going to spoil the crap out of it.
Yeah, and for those of you who are asking, like, what happened to the podcast last week? I'll tell you what happened to the podcast last week. We had technical difficulties and we lost video. We did shoot one, and we lost. We just had a whole bunch of stuff fall out, so it was incomplete, so we could not post it.
Excuses.
Yeah, whatever.
Excuses. But we are here.
I blame Elon Musk.
Wow.
I don't even know what that means.
Either way, we are here to talk about
Wakanda Forever.
So we're going to spoil it. So there you go. There's your warning.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and also, before we actually dive into Wakanda Forever, very quickly, we have to recognize the passing of Kevin Conroy.
oh my God. I mean, yeah, we haven't done that yet, have we?
We have not.
This is the first podcast back.
Yeah. And before we talk about that, Kevin Conroy was apparently ill, and not many people knew. And he passed suddenly. The voice of Batman for generations.
Don't
really.
gotta tell me. That's the guy who got me into comic books, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, just crazy. That was a really sucky piece of news to get this past week. And, as fans, we're all heartbroken. Our hearts go out to his family and everybody who knew and loved him. But, man, as a voice of Batman, he will be missed. So our tip of a hat to Kevin Conroy. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, I think the last one that affected me as celebrity or, someone that I didn't know personally, I just knew of, that affected me that bad was Stan Lee. Like, that one really bummed me out. I'm still obviously bummed out because, again, I say it all the time on here. If you watch Variant for any reasonable amount of time, I contribute Batman the Animated Series to be the thing that got me into comic books. And obviously Kevin Conroy being the voice of Batman, Bruce Wayne, that's like, he's Batman. I was lucky enough to meet him twice. I met him once, like in a 2015 Dallas Comic-Con. I got him to autograph several pieces. And then for Variant, we went to San Diego Comic-Con, and I got a chance to interview him when we went, when he was voicing Batman for The Killing Joke. And he was like the nicest. So nice. I always said after that, because we were at a press junket, and him getting interviews before he finally got to us, you could just see he was just so happy with everyone, super generous. Like, he just really loved that he was Batman. Like, he really ate it up. And he even did, the I Am Vengeance, I Am Batman thing, which I have and I've kept forever. I treasured it. It's one of those things where people say, it's very stereotypical, like, never meet your heroes. But, like, he was awesome. Like, that was like, no. You want, like, if you looked up to him as much as, like, I did and stuff like that, you wanted to meet him. Because he was just seemed like a genuinely nice person.
Yeah, I remember when we shot it, because we were in the kind of the press line. And when we saw him coming, there was a whole bunch of different people there as far as the cast and stuff like that. And everybody's got different personalities. But Kevin just kind of like took over the room.
Oh, for sure.
Him and Tara Strong, like they just kind of took over the room, and just their personalities are just very charismatic. But when Kevin came up, like you said, he was just super generous with his time, super kind. And we posted that on the YouTube channel at the time when he did. I Am Vengeance, I Am the Night, it was just to see, but also, like, one of the things we talked about at the time when we were there, we couldn't believe how, like, powerful his voice actually was.
Oh, you could hear it echo through, like, the whole room.
Boomed. Like, the whole room stopped when he did it. Like, everybody stopped, and, like, some people, like, applauded and stuff like that because it literally reverberated throughout the entire room. It was pretty incredible, but he was a very cool guy, and he was always incredibly generous with fans. Which says a lot about who he really was.
It's just crazy that, because he is the voice of Batman. I think we've talked about it here on the show, too. Like, if you were to talk about Batman, live action, like, if you were to blend live action and animated and stuff, like, he's the guy. Like, he's even, like, as far as that goes, like, he would, be over Keaton and anyone else who's portrayed Batman if you were to blend the worlds. But, I mean, he's been Batman the longest, too. Like,
oh, yeah.
He's voiced Batman I don't even know. Like, well over 20 times. I'm sure it's something ridiculous, probably like 40, 50 times as far as, like, different series, video games, animated movies, insane. Shorts. Like he is Batman. And no one, like, at least for a very long time, is going to be able to compete with how much work he's contributed to The Dark Knight. So, it's really, really sad, and R.I.P.
Yeah. So we had to acknowledge that and, send our love to everybody.
I will say, we got, outside of my office here in the studio, we got a Phantom, Mask of the Phantasm poster. Right. And now every time I'm looking at it, it's kind of like, because I have a lot of Batman animated stuff, and it's like a weird, every time I see it now, I'm like, dang it. Like it really is a bummer. It sucks. It sucks.
Especially with they were working on the sequel to the Batman the Animated Series, the continuation of Batman the Animated Series.
That's right. Yeah.
And he was supposed to voice Batman, and there was a lot of expectation of what that could become. Even though I know HBO had kind of parted ways.
You know
with
what's
that.
crazy? I didn't even think of that. I forgot that he was attached to that as well with Bruce Timm. And
I guess my
Abrams.
point is that like you didn't know that was the last time we were going to get to hear him voice Batman. And
I wonder how much he's recorded of that.
I don't know. I don't know that they actually got into production. I don't know how far that got. But anyway, so again, just had to acknowledge that, and I guess segues right into Wakanda Forever because it was also dealing with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, even though obviously he passed a while back now. But this movie, Wakanda Forever, we speculated a lot about this movie leading up to it. We had all kinds of speculations about, we both of us thought Dr. Doom was going to at least be teased in this movie.
Missed opportunity.
Well,
it's good. I don't care. It's a good movie, but missed opportunity.
I will say this though, having seen the movie now, and first of all, the movie opens up with a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, as it was only proper.
You knew that. Yeah. You felt like that they were going to do something like that.
But the way they did it
was great.
Was so good. So and also there was a lot of speculation about how are they going to explain the death of T'Challa, right? Nobody knew. It was sudden, blah, blah, blah. And the way they did it was, I thought, incredibly smart. T'Challa dies the same way that Chadwick Boseman died. He got sick, and no one even knew. He didn't share. There's even a line in the film where Shuri says, he suffered in silence, and by the time he asked me for help, I couldn't save him. I couldn't help him. And so it was directly tied to the actual situation.
Well, you know what's cool about that, too, is Coogler went to Boseman's family and it got their approval on that. He's like, this is the idea. What do you think? I essentially just want to mirror what happened in real life. And they were like, yes. And then they did it.
And once you saw it, it was like, this was the only way to do this. Obviously.
The thing that stood out to me the most, like obviously the whole opening and how they dealt with all that, but for whatever reason, it's because we've all seen the Marvel bumper, right? Where it starts to the Marvel Studios and the theme song we all know and love. There's many different iterations now for pretty much every Disney Plus show or movie. They change it to match that particular film or show. And with this, like, I was just silence with like a montage of Boseman and all the films he's been in for the MCU. It was great. Like, that's still, I don't know. I'm still thinking about that from time to time. Every time I think about it, I'm like, but that part though, for whatever reason, like it's like the silence is deafening kind of thing. Yeah. It just works so well, and it was a hell of a way to kick off the movie.
It was amazing how emotionally impactful just utter silence was.
It was like that for several moments in the film too. They use silence a lot
at the end.
Yeah, they use silence a lot in their favor to get that. Isn't it funny how, like, obviously music is like what's used to manipulate emotion. Like, in a horror movie, the music makes things more scary, or like, role, if you just change the music in anything, it makes something funny, it can make something scary, it makes something dramatic. But it's crazy, like, how just the silence could even seem to manipulate emotions more than music a lot of the times, especially with sorrow. Well, this movie, that's the one thing I would say this movie is, like, it's, leadership, sorrow, revenge. Like, the themes in it were so, good. It was just it was weird because it's like a blockbuster popcorn Marvel film. But this, I felt like, at least for me, was the heaviest to date. Like, it was the most dramatic. Like, there were some scenes in here where I was like, oh, that's not just good for, like, a superhero film. Like, that's just a good, well-acted, written scene, specifically stuff with like the Queen and stuff like that. It was like, I got misty at one part. That part with the Queen where she's talking to Okoye, like, that one kind of hit me.
Right.
Like, it's the scene where he's saying, I lost my family.
Yeah.
And it hits because it reflects so real to what actually happened and what Boseman's family must have felt in real life, where it's like, this mirroring each other is, wow, it's really resonating and very well done.
Yeah, I agree. It was a lot of the things they did, that I guess everybody was so busy. A lot of people were so busy talking about just kind of like, how's this going to further the MCU and the actual superhero MCU continuity side of things, that, there wasn't as much. There was obviously consideration and talk about it, but not nearly as much consideration of, like, how would they tell the loss of Chadwick Boseman's and T'Challa's story within the overall. It was a lot of the speculation was about Shuri becoming Black Panther and the this, that, or the other thing. What cameos might appear and what it might lead to. And they really kept it pretty contained.
Marvel's been doing that across the board.
They have.
That's one of the things. Like I've been joking about it here for like the last year or so. After seeing every like movie, Shang-Chi or whatever, Moon Knight, any series or whatever, it's like a lot of it hasn't really been. The last time that I was like, whoa, at least for me personally, was Loki. Where it's like, oh, like there hasn't been much building connecting to the greater MCU and a lot of their films and Disney Plus stuff. Like it all connects clearly, but not like, oh, this is a thing that you're gonna have to watch that for, where they used to do a lot in the Infinity Saga. There hasn't been a lot, but I mean, for this, it made sense after seeing it, just because it was clearly like, a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, a setup, and like a send off and establishing the new status quo going forward. But I still think it would have been smart to somehow, because it could have just been a post-credit scene to kind of put Doom in there somehow. Because it just, being the comic fan that I am and knowing how like closely Atuma is linked to Doctor Doom and how Doom has always wanted to manipulate vibranium, it was just kind of there. And like I get, what Coogler and everyone was doing, and it was fantastic, but I still think you could have somehow, in a post-credit scene, just been like, hey, Doom wants vibranium too. Just something to kind of like, again, it didn't have to be in the film to change anything you want to do. It could have just been like, a post-credit scene and be like, oh, Doom wants vibranium too. Because that's the film was about, how everyone wants vibranium. Every country is trying to get it. The U.S. wants it, and that's kind of how like, oh my God, Namor, gets into war with the Wakandans and stuff like that. Right. So I definitely think you could have done it, but I also, on the flip side, so the nerdy comic book guy in me was like, that would have been cool, you should have done it. But I definitely understand like how the emphasis was basically on Boseman and the Black Panther, and they didn't really want to distract from that. So I get it.
Yeah, and again, by the time the movie ended, I was actually glad there was no additional post-credit scene. I thought the way that they ended it was
they had the setup.
They did.
That's a big one.
It tied into the actual. It was contained within the movie. It wasn't extending anything.
No.
Well, yes, it does.
It does. You know what's funny about it though? Because it's like the movie ends with it coming full circle with like Shuri, and finally accepting like the loss and moving on and burning her brother's garment and stuff like that in the fire, and
again, just in silence, and then her replaying her time with her brother.
And she's now the new Black Panther and stuff. But then it cuts, you get like a song or whatever, and then it goes to basically just a continuation of that scene. Yeah. So where like Nakia comes and she reveals that she has a son with Black Panther, with T'Challa. So, and his name is T'Challa. He's basically T'Challa Jr. So it sets up to like, oh, Shuri's just in the meantime Black Panther. Correct. The ultimate Black Panther will be his son. So, which is really cool. And it mirrors the comic books as well.
It does. And I thought it was really smart. When I walked away, across the board, I kind of just thought they handled everything so well, and was just really, really smart in their writing. And they really appeased, because, ever since Chadwick Boseman passed, initially when the news first broke, it was kind of more, the larger majority was just like, well, nobody else can play T'Challa. But as time has gone on, that's changed, and you kind of have a very split fan base.
Well, because it's like, I get like both sides.
I do too. I understand both sides.
Because it's like, I totally understand, and I actually was on the side where I'm like, don't just automatically recast him. Like, I think that, for me, I think there did need to be a transition period, which is what this movie did. But now, I think
you're going to have the best of both worlds.
You could have the best of both worlds, because now it's like, because it's at the same time, yes, he died, and that is very, very sad. He was a fantastic Black Panther, and people who knew him said he was just a great person, and it's really, really sad when you lose someone. Yeah. But just because that happened, that shouldn't mean we're never going to have Black Panther on screen again. Because that on the other end, and it's like, so now we can never have this awesome character again. So there is like,
even me, like I was honestly one of the things that made me more sympathetic to the T'Challa needs to come back was because originally I said, even here on the show, I was just like, look, Chadwick Boseman embodied that character.
It's phenomenal.
It should just move on to another version of the character, right? Not T'Challa. And it was actually
which is pretty much what they're doing. They're giving it's T'Challa Jr.
It's basically it is, but but T'Challa is coming back, right? So that's kind of they're kind of threading that needle.
My only thing with that, I brought this up to you, off mic, I was like, but he's like what 8'10" in that thing.
Yeah,
so I'm like, I'm thinking of like time jumping wise. I'm like, all right, well, like how long? So how many movies is Shuri gonna be Black Panther before we get to him? Because he's got to at least be like 20, 19, 20 before he could become like Black Panther. You would think?
I mean, you're looking at probably a 10-year gap, but they, you know, in the course of if you're doing 6 years in the movies, they can easily do 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, just jump 10 years in that time frame. So I don't think.
Well,
that's
I'm also wondering too, because like they did what was it, the blip? That was 5 years. They did a 5-year jump.
Yeah.
So I mean, you
and
can do
they
that
could
as well.
easily also, because they're doing the multiverse, they could easily do a situation where it's like they did that just to introduce that character exists, that T'Challa's son exists in the multiverse.
They bring an older version of him.
Older version that's already Black Panther. I mean, they could do a number of different things, but again, just that idea of like, you know, T'Challa is an important character not just for Marvel but for the Black community, and you know that is. By doing that, you're both honoring and immortalizing Chadwick Boseman as the original T'Challa, while simultaneously being able to continue that character and, you know, the legacy that he brings to the broader MCU. I think they just handled it really, really smartly. They
did. They get like we were just saying, they had the best of both worlds because they, you know, for the people who were like, don't do it. Well, they didn't, but now they're gonna do it. You know, because again, like I was saying, I was always in the middle from the beginning. I'm like, just you need to kind of a transition period. You know, you don't want to just rip off that Band-Aid and kind of ignore that anything happened to someone that was so beloved. So you know, really, really good film. What'd you think of Namor? I love Namor.
Loved him.
I really dug, because a lot of people have been asking me on social stuff like that. What do I think about Namor? I loved how much they changed it, because I've been very vocal. I say all the time, I am not against change as long as it's for the better. I'm against change when you change something and it's just crappy. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of times that film, TV shows, cartoons have added fantastic stuff to the comic books. Harley Quinn was a freaking character made for, you know, Batman the Animated Series, a cartoon, and now she's one of the best characters. So I am not, you know, against change as long as it's for the better. This is one of those things where I think it's for the better or just as good. I think it's for the better in the sense that I love how it makes him different from Jason Momoa Aquaman. Like, I love still his comic book origin and stuff like that is good, but I do see why Coogler and Feige were like, let's change it, because then he would literally just be Marvel's Aquaman, and we already have that in Jason Momoa. Right. So I loved how, you know, they made him like Hispanic, you know, that Mayan Aztec culture. Yeah. Really, really dug that. How it's not Atlantis, Talokan. Talokan. I loved all of it. I thought it was really, really, really well done. And Namor was a complete and utter badass, just like he is in the comic books. Like, he was wrecking shop. He was borderline an unstoppable force. And the only reason he was stopped is because Shuri put him in a toaster, essentially. But it was really, really well done. I was a fan. I am a fan of this version of Namor and his people. And I cannot wait to see more, because guess what? Marvel didn't do the thing they always do. They didn't kill the antagonist at the end of the film. Yeah. They kept him like Loki, and we're probably going to see him more down the line because he's awesome.
Well, there was no doubt.
Could you imagine?
Can't kill Namor.
Could you imagine?
He's not a villain. He's a major player in Marvel.
Well, that's what I like about it, because I saw an interview where someone actually said to Coogler that he's a villain, and he was like, no, I get what you're saying. That's why I even use the antagonist, because he's not necessarily a villain. He's just, you know, he's trying to protect his people. But I love that. I love that argument that's been coming up a lot lately. It's like, someone who's a villain to you isn't a villain to their people. Yeah. Like, it's always, the grass is always greener. And this was like a perfect example of that. But then by the end of the film, you see the turn where they're going to try to make him more of like that, you know, hero, anti-hero going forward, whereas like he's heroic, but he'll still mess you up.
Well, they introduced him really well, because I mean, first of all, as far as his look, you know, when they revealed that they were going more of a Mayan, that old Mayan Aztec Yucatan Peninsula look, and cultural design. I loved it right from the start. It was really smart. And as we got into the movie and they explained more about his backstory and how the people became, you know, the origins of Talokan and everything like that. It was, you know, I really liked the way that they did it. I thought the way that they told the story wasn't all this expositional dialogue. It was just really well told. They, you know, that explained why the movie was 2 hours and 45 minutes or 2:47 or whatever it was, because there was a lot of world building in this movie, a lot of world building, not just for Talokan, but also for Wakanda.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it was, they spent a lot of time.
I mean, it was almost a 3-hour movie.
It was, yeah. So it was, and it was, there was some parts that felt a little bit slow, but overall, you know, there was a lot of world building, and with Namor and him explaining and also showing how powerful he actually is and the powers that he wields, and how the people follow him as the feathered serpent god king, you know, that whole thing, the Kulkulkan, that whole thing,
so cool.
So awesome.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's complete. Like, his origin was completely changed for the comic books, but
totally different.
it worked really well. I actually loved that it worked really well, and that I liked it so much, because this is a prime example. Again, everyone's like, you just don't like it because no like the comic books. Like, nope, that's not why I don't like it.
Right?
It's like, because this is nothing like the comic books, and I love it. And that's because it's done well.
Yeah,
so
and
it's proof.
And it was smart on Marvel's part. They had to do that because Aquaman had already been around with live-action DC, like you said, with Jason Momoa for years now.
It's actually kind of cool that, like, this forced them to do something different and not just get, like, Atlantis again.
Yeah, so it was very smart for them to actually take the time and say, okay, how can we present this in a different way?
Did you
and separate the two?
Like the subtleness of, like, how, you know, the Talokan, like, how when they're on the surface, they're blue because of the whole oxygen thing. But when they're underwater, they look normal, right? And Namor, because he's got, you know, the mutant gene and stuff like that, he's just the same all the time.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, they never talk about it. They never mentioned it. But throughout the movie, you just see it's like, because I remember watching, we were like halfway through the movie. I'm like, oh, they're not blue. And then when they're on the land, I'm like, oh, they're blue. I'm like, oh, because it's like the air thing, and because they explained how Namor can absorb air and breathe on land and on water. I'm like, that's really cool. Like, and it's just good storytelling.
It really
It's
is.
one of those things where it's like, you don't have to freaking tell the audience, show the audience. And, like, you know, they did. I was like, oh, you put the pieces together. I just love that, like, attention to detail. What did you think about Ironheart? I really liked Ironheart too.
You know, that was I only had a couple of nitpicky things for me. I still need to see more with Ironheart. I felt like the introduction of Riri Williams in this movie, it worked, but I didn't feel like it was necessary.
Okay.
I get why they did it, because they've got her show coming up and they want to expand on her and stuff. So it fit. You know, it was like a decent place to do it, but I do feel like it didn't add a ton to the film, and so far it was just kind of like, okay.
I loved her interactions with Okoye and
there was
stuff,
a couple of
Shuri.
good moments, especially with Okoye, that
Dude.
I thought were really, like, when they first go to get her. Okoye was just really funny.
Okoye is one of the best characters.
She's a super cool character.
I think I said it when I saw the first Black Panther. Like, Okoye and Shuri were two of my favorite characters in the first Black Panther. Like, I think I said that when we first reviewed, because they are.
Nakia is great too.
Yes, Nakia is also really good. I mean, the cast is super.
Yeah,
I mean,
Lupita
Queen.
does a great job.
I mean, the cast is really strong. But I was surprised how much I liked her, because we just covered Ironheart on we did a history or origin of Ironheart on the channel, on our main channel, and I had to reread all her stuff, get refamiliar, and even learn new things about her as I dived into her even more. And, you know, just familiarizing my, you know, rereading stuff and reading stuff I haven't read before, I'm like, this character's really dope. And, like, remembering, like, how, you know, she and the Tony Stark's relationship started and stuff like that, and how she in the comics she uses AI. Like, I'm like, this is a really cool character. I hope they don't F her up. Like, I hope, because I knew they were already gonna age her up. In the comics, she's 15. I think in the movie they said she's 19 and stuff like that, and she's not connected to Tony Stark. At least they didn't mention anything.
At least
in this
not
movie.
yet.
Yeah, they mentioned Stark Tech like a few times, and that she's loosely basing her suit off of Stark, but there was no, like, connection to Tony Stark, which is a little bummer for me. A little bit.
There's a lot of smoke out there for a while now that they're trying to rope Robert Downey back in.
I hope so.
To do the voice of an AI.
For her Disney Plus, I will say I'm excited for a Disney Plus series now. I am excited for a Disney Plus series, and I do hope they rope Robert Downey in, because I think that's what'll really put it over the top for me personally, at least, because she made me laugh the most in that movie, or at least a lot in that film, and I'm actually excited to see more of her, when it, like, kind of like Hawkeye, when I said way back when, where I was not excited about Hawkeye, and that's like one of my favorite Marvel things ever. I'm hoping that turns out to be the case with Iron, because I like her in the comic books, but I'm like, I don't know what you're gonna do in the MCU, and to, you know, my surprise, I'm digging it thus far.
Yeah, I think that they just kind of overall, I really don't have any major complaints. It's just for me, it wasn't a standout. It's not something that I would be like, oh, I didn't like that. That was a miss for me. It was just like, I need to see more of what they do with her, because it just, again, it was like, it was fine in the movie, but it didn't feel necessary throughout. Yeah. It was just kind of more like, it felt like it was intentionally inserted there just to introduce her, as opposed to this really drove any elements of the story or this film forward. It really didn't feel like that to me.
That's fair.
But overall, not bad.
Did you have any? Because I was trying to think, like, when we got here, we're like, I don't know. There's not really anything. Like, there's nothing. Usually when you see movies or anything, you're like, I didn't like this.
Right.
Most of the time, at least. Right. I don't really. I mean, the only real complaint I have, without like being super nitpicky, is I felt it was slow at times. Because there was, they had. I mean, they were building out, like you said, they were further building out Wakanda. Dealing with Black Panther's death, introducing a whole new civilization under the sea and Namor and stuff. There was a lot of pieces. So like, I get it, but that's like the only thing. So because again, that's like really nitpicking, because it's like they were shoving a lot of things in there. So I can't think of anything like I don't think there was a character I didn't like too. I liked Ironheart. I liked Shuri. I liked Ross. I liked, the Queen, Namor. Like I don't think there was a character I didn't like.
Yeah, there was. I can't think of a single character I flatly did not like. And overall, I would say I don't have any major complaints about the movie. In fact, I would go even further and say some of the things that they did that I wasn't anticipating, I thought that they just nailed it. And it was like, and as I was watching, I was like, oh, obviously, yes, that's what you do. You know what I mean? Again, a lot of the ways that they handled the passing of T'Challa and all of that. It was just really, really smart. The way that they told the story of the Talokan and Namor and how he became their king.
Talokan.
Yeah, the whole thing. Really smart. I love that they mirrored the heart-shaped herb.
Oh,
with,
yeah. It was just
with Namor and his people. And that's how they got, their ability to breathe underwater and how he got his powers and became a mutant. All that sort of a thing.
So good.
So, he, again, they introduced him as a mutant, which is proper. So I loved that.
How the way he flies is basically like he's ice skating or rollerblading in the air. I thought that was
he's leaping through the air in a lot
of
ways.
So cool.
Really cool.
So cool. Again, the more I think about it, I mean, this was just a solid film, and it's like easily, obviously the best film of Phase 4.
Without doubt.
But it's like, I feel like that's almost a disservice, though, because it's like, you had Thor, Love and Thunder, which for me, and I know probably you, is my least favorite Marvel movie, full stop. Right. That's right. I like Thor: The Dark World more than Love and Thunder. Come at me. I don't even care.
We're on the same page.
I will die on that hill.
Yeah. No, that's...
and then you had Multiverse of Madness, which I liked, but it wasn't amazing, and a lot of people didn't like it. Like, I think did you not like Multiverse of Madness, or did you like it? I don't remember.
Multiverse of Madness, I was really disappointed in.
Okay, see,
because I had high hopes for that film.
So it's polarizing.
I'm a big Doctor Strange fan.
So it's polarizing. Point is, it didn't have like a lot to beat.
In fact, outside of No Way Home,
that was 2021.
And then that was a great movie.
Yeah,
that was
good.
Really fun movie. I don't know if I would call it a great movie. I would call it a really fun movie. Like,
if you're a Spider-Man fan,
if you're a Spider-Man fan, that was a really fun movie, right? But what I mean by that is like Wakanda Forever, in terms of tone, Wakanda Forever and its approach and its tone versus No Way Home. It's like two different. It felt very, totally different. Sure. But outside of that, then you had a couple of moderate, like for me, just like, okay, they were good, they were fun. I liked them, I enjoyed them. You had with Shang-Chi and Black Widow.
So you're just going back, not even this year.
Yeah, and then everything else was like, in terms of the films, they just weren't great.
I would say if you're going back like a few years, it's 2021 or even 2020. Well, as far as Marvel films go, the standouts for me automatically is Wakanda Forever, Shang-Chi.
Well, I'm just counting all of Phase 4.
Oh, all of Phase 4. Okay,
like Phase 4 is what we're talking about.
Yeah, Black Widow.
So yeah, you have like I said, you have a couple of like ones that was like, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was like entertaining. Shang-Chi,
I wonder when the MCU is going to introduce Taskmaster, because I think they have someone they call Taskmaster, but it's not Taskmaster.
This has become your singular greatest thorn,
dude,
in the MCU.
It bugs me, I think, more than Thor, because at least we got a good Thor.
Wow.
At least we got a good Thor.
I got you.
Infinity War, he was awesome. And he was good in several other films. We've only seen Taskmaster once. Taskmaster's going to appear again in Thunderbolts, but I highly doubt they're going to change the character in Thunderbolts.
It's not happening.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's freaking...
Yeah.
It makes... And I'm not even like a massive Taskmaster fan. This is a really weird rant. I'm not even a big Taskmaster fan. It's just, they did that character so dirty, it pisses me off. That's all I'm going to say, because I can go on and on. I could talk about how bad that character is in the MCU all day.
I think it's warranted. I have to say, I do think that is probably...
what?
Even beyond the Hulk.
You know what?
For me,
that
is a bigger miss because in the way that they did it from the start to finish.
Yeah.
Because, again, like you said about Thor, at least with the Hulk, you had some cool moments.
There was no redeeming qualities.
None.
There was no redeeming qualities.
For Taskmaster, no.
I don't know. Anyway, Wakanda Forever was awesome, and we both loved it.
Yeah, it was great. And in the end, they introduced the future of T'Challa, which I thought was just really, it was a sweet moment. It was a really cool moment, as as Nakia explained it.
And it explained why.
And let me tell you something else, too. Before I forget this point, Letitia Wright did a great job as Shuri. Walking through the emotions of losing her brother and then her mother and having to take on all of this. And she didn't
everyone did a good job, though.
Yeah. Another character, just really unsung, but I love M'Baku.
Oh, he's great.
He
was hilarious, too.
He's underused.
He was great.
And at the end, they imply that he will become king.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, give me more M'Baku.
Now, people are like, wait, how come Shuri's not king? Because the Black Panther doesn't always have to be the king.
Correct. She's they're the protector.
Yeah, they're protector. So while they can also be the king or queen, they don't have to be. So I think that's going to be a fun dynamic. Plus, they already established that like Shuri is not going to be the Black Panther forever. Like, I mean, they introduced Black Panther's son.
She will be for a while.
Yeah, but they introduced Black Panther's son, saying, "This is the end goal. This is the end goal."
Could you imagine if Winston Duke's M'Baku character got a hold of the heart-shaped herb?
That would be amazing.
That guy, because that guy's a beast. I stood right next to him at the premiere of Infinity War. We still just stood shoulder to shoulder, and that guy is a monster.
You know, speaking of ripped and huge, freaking Jonathan Majors. Oh, bro. You see him on the cover of Men's Health? That guy,
I just saw the trailer for Creed 2, and I was like...
He looks photoshopped.
Creed 3.
He looks photoshopped.
No joke. I was like, what happened to you?
Good things, apparently. Good for him. Good for him.
My man's been in the gym.
Good for you, sir.
But yeah, I mean, if that's what he's bringing to Kang, man, Kang's gonna be a
what
beast
you eating?
As well.
I'll have what he's having.
Yeah, for real.
You know he's a Texas. He's a Texas guy.
Is he really?
I just saw him on Jimmy Kimmel. He was like a farm boy.
No way.
Yeah,
where in Texas is he from?
He didn't say. He just said he was a Texas kid. He grew up on a farm, and because he was asking me, "What are you thinking about?" He's like, "I was a farm boy, man, Texas." I'm like, whoa, wow, all right, good for you.
Funny. That's like Jamie Foxx.
Dude, so
he actually grew up in Terrell, right down the road from us.
So does that mean I'm going to be in an MCU film?
Oh, wow, the future is so bright.
But yes, Wakanda Forever, if you haven't seen it, I mean, well, first and foremost, if you haven't seen it, we just spoiled the crap out of it. We just spoiled
the entire film.
But if you're one of those people who don't care about spoilers and, you need to go see it to see everything we just talked about for yourself.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. It was really good and easily the best of Phase 4 for me.
So it's a great ending. I see why they left it for the end, and now we go onward again because the MCU will never end.
Quantumania in February, and we got our first trailer for that. We actually recorded our take on Quantumania in the last technical debacle, so we got our first look at Kang, and he looks amazing in that. Also in the recorded. That's never aired. Is we talked about the DC stuff, but it's another.
We're putting the audio up still, right?
Maybe.
Maybe what? Maybe. We already did it, and we're talking about it.
Maybe we'll see.
Comment. Just keep liking. Say we want it. We want it. Hashtag we want it.
Hashtag bring back the lost cut.
But in any case, Tim, I think that wraps up our thoughts on Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back next week.
Yeah.
with a fully recorded.
Hopefully,
with a fully recorded podcast.
This is just a joke now. They're just laughing at us.
No, we've been back. We recorded every week. We missed one, but it not on purpose.
They're like, prove it. Release the audio cut.
Release the
audio cut.
All right, I'll see if I can, because I got to trim it down because we had issues. So I'll have to see if I can get a solid cut.
Oh man, could you imagine?
I was so annoyed.
Really?
Because when you sit down and you record an hour-long podcast.
That's why I'm bringing it up now. I'm like, it's a waste of our time. Post,
and I'm like, where's the...
All right.
Anyway.
All right. Forget hashtag we want it. It is totally release the audio cut. Let's get this movement going. Blow them up, gang.
If enough of you ask for it, I will find a way to do it.
On that note, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Yes. That is everything I've ever wanted.